Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much to everyone for joining, and welcome to today's session on creating unstoppable momentum using the change canvas. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you here today. I wanted to give a quick introduction to me and Diversily, and then we can get started. So my name is Marissa Ellis. I'm the founder of Diversily. Diversily is ultimately about helping organizations unlock collective brilliance. That's what we do. And we help organizations take a more purpose-led, human-centered approach to business. So the work that we do, one of our flagship programs is all around inclusive leadership. And I'll tell you a bit more about that at the end of today's session. We do a lot of work around strategy development and running strategic initiatives, specifically thinking about building inclusion into strategy by default. And we do work around inclusive culture building. So one of our flagship tools that we've created here at Diversily is called the Change Canvas. And today I'd like to share with you a couple of case studies of some of our clients who are using it, hopefully inspiring you in your endeavors as to how you can potentially use it within your organizations. And I'll talk a bit more around how we can support you or how you can go ahead and do that by yourselves. But the Change Canvas has always been free. It will always continue to be free. And our mission really is about inspiring others to drive positive change. And it's a powerful but simple visual framework that that genuinely works. So there's a bit of a paradox, I guess, in our sort of world of leadership and diversity and inclusion, in that a lot of the work we do is around helping leaders think inclusively, embed inclusive intelligence into the way that they operate, think about understanding diversity and inclusion, and using that to become better leaders. And historically, that hasn't been the case. Diversity and inclusion and leadership have been these sort of separate entities, if you like. So a lot of the work we do is around helping leaders think more inclusively, as I say, to take a more inclusive approach to leadership, to drive business success, to create healthier, happier, high-performing teams. But the other side of what we do is we work with people who are driving diversity and inclusion initiatives to help them become better leaders and help them manage strategic change more effectively, because diversity and inclusion is just like any other strategic change project. And in fact, it's wide reaching. It covers all aspects of the business. Some people say, oh, well, we just need to hire some more diverse talent and then we're okay. It's a very limited view. Diversity and inclusion covers everything. It covers recruitment. It covers your culture. It covers the products and services that you offer. So it's something that touches all aspects of your business. So we work, as I say, with leaders to help them embed inclusive thinking into the way they operate, but we also work with diversity and inclusion practitioners to help them get better at managing strategic change, because ultimately that's what diversity and inclusion is all about. So in today's session, ultimately there's kind of four things that you might be here for. So I'd be interested if you want to give me a sort of a thumbs up. I'll read out these four things and you can give me a thumbs up if it's what you're here for. If you want to put your cameras on, that would be nice. It'd be nice to talk to some faces. I understand not all of you may want to do that. Thank you, Jaron, amazing, brilliant, nice to have some smiles. So the first reason you might be here is because you want to get introduced to the Change Canvas, which is our free tool for driving change. So give me a thumbs up if that's something that thank you, good to see. The second reason you might be here is because you want to see what's working for other organizations. You want to see, not just learn about the tool, but understand how it's been put into practice. So good to see. I can see some thumbs up. Lovely. The third reason, I do have a degree in maths and I can't count to three, so well done me. The third reason you might be here is you might want to meet and share and learn from each other. So I hope there'll be some discussion on this call. So that might be one of the reasons you're here. So Sharon's keen to talk. Steve's keen to talk. Lovely. And the first, we've got some videos just joined. Let me admit her. Hey Video, thanks for joining. Oh, she hasn't joined yet. Anyway, we'll continue. Hey Video, thanks for joining us. The fourth reason you might be here is because we'll be sharing some special offers at the end of today's session. So you might be interested to find out what they are. Okay, so one of the things that we always do as part of our inclusive leadership workshops is we talk about inclusive behaviors, and we talk about being courageous, we talk about being authentic, and we talk about being curious, so leaving judgments at the door. So I'd like to invite us all to come into today's session with those behaviors in mind. We're all here because we want to make a difference. You know, no one signed up to join this session today because, you know, you don't care. We all want to drive and create more inclusive workplaces. So if I can get a thumbs up that you'll come into today's session, you'll be authentic, you'll be courageous to have brave conversations, and you'll be curious, you'll ask questions, you'll engage with the session. That would be amazing. Fantastic. Thank you for that. So before I introduce you to the change canvas, which is where we'll start, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the power of visual tools. So, and that's ultimately what the change canvas is. It's a visual framework. So reflection and conversation are really important, but talk, it can be fast, it can be fragile, it can be disconnected, and it can be fragmented. And also people have their own layers of interpretation. So for example, people may not hear what others intended to communicate. So I suspect we've all been in that situation where you're hearing two people talking to each other and you're thinking, you're not on the same page here. You're saying one thing, but the other person is hearing what they want to be hearing. So even when we think we agree, people can still have their own reality, their own idea of what's actually being decided. And there've been studies that have shown that you take a bunch of executives who have just decided on their company strategy, you ask them all to write it down, and they come up with completely different things, even though they're insistent that they've just agreed on exactly what it was they were going to be doing. So the power of visual tools is that they force sense making, they force clarifying, and they force summarizing, which are all needed to create clarity and alignment. And their simplicity is ultimately their power. So anyone can use them with the maximum or with the minimum amount of knowledge. So in fact, the change canvas has been used by school children, just to give you the sort of the baseline of what might be required. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, if I can find the right button, and I will bring up the change canvas so I can share it with you. Give me a moment to do that. Oh, we've got someone else attending. Let me just let them in. Okay, now whilst I'm sharing my screen, I'm also going to share some links in the chat, which I shared at the beginning before quite a few people joined. We're going to be going across to a mural in a moment. So whilst I'm sharing my screen, you can click on the mural. Okay, so can you see my screen? The power is at the moment it says the power of visual tools. Yeah, okay, yeah. Perfect. Wonderful. So let me introduce you to the change canvas. So the change canvas is a visual framework. We've just been talking about visual frameworks, and it's the top half is about strategy, the bottom half is about execution. So the reflection board on the top left is all about understanding the why. It's about framing the context of your change journey. The vision board on the right hand side on the top is all about being a visionary. It's about inspiring the future, having clarity in terms of where you're heading, understanding what your goals and aspirations are. And the progress board on the bottom is about turning ideas, getting creative, coming up with those ideas. Action board is about committing to take specific actions. And the results board is about celebrating your successes. All too often we, oh, sorry, someone else in the waiting room. All too often we just move on. We just keep going. We're too busy, rabbit in the headlights, and we don't pause to reflect on what have we actually succeeded? What can we build upon? What have we learned? Where do we go from here? So it's an iterative framework for driving change. And the part of the power of the change canvas is that it creates balance. By having these different, oh, I've got someone else in the waiting room, let them in. Welcome, Holly, welcome, Nikki. Thanks for joining us. So the power of the change, good to have you here. The power of the change canvas is this balance. So in each of the different boards of the change canvas, you're having slightly different conversations, and it's that collective overall view that is the power. So the reflection board is about being honest. It's about really understanding the why. The vision board is about being ambitious, setting your aspirations. The ideas board is about being unconstrained. The action board is about being realistic. And the results board is ultimately about being impactful. So before we go on to share a couple of case studies of some of our projects that we've been working with, some of our clients that have been using the change canvas, I wanted to do a little exercise. And this exercise has a couple of purposes really. One is to remind us all why diversity and inclusion is so important. So we're here because we want to drive our diversity and inclusion initiatives forward, but why does it matter? Why does it matter for individuals, and why does it matter for organizations? And instead of me just telling you why it's so important, I want us to do an interactive exercise. And in doing this interactive exercise, I'll also start introducing you to the change canvas and how it can work. So at this point, I'd like to invite you all to click on the, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we can go to the mural. So if you click on the link, let me just share those links again for Nikki and Holly, who I don't think you can see the chat if you join a Zoom after a message has been sent. So I'll just share those links again. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and if I can invite you all to join me in the mural. Brilliant. So you shouldn't have to sign in. Brilliant. I can see some random animals joining me, which is just what I'd like. So what we're going to do is, it's actually a quiet writing exercise. And this is actually a great way of bringing lots of voices into the room. You know, if we were to go around the room and invite everyone to speak, we'd take up the whole of our session. So I'd like us to collectively see how much we can achieve in the next 5 minutes by looking at the change canvas. And we're in this, for the purpose of this exercise, we're only looking at the top half, the strategy half. And the point of this exercise is to remind us why diversity and inclusion, equity and inclusion matters. And we're going to be thinking about, in the reflection board, we're going to be thinking about Pain Island. So where are we today? What are the common challenges that a lack of diversity, equity and inclusion can bring? And what are some of the challenges we might face when trying to drive change? Oops, sorry, let me just I'll lock the board. What are some of the challenges that we might face as we try to implement diversity and inclusion initiatives? And we'd like to look at this from the perspective of organizations, from the perspective of leaders, from the perspective of staff, for everyone. And it's amazing to see you already starting to write. We're then going to move our attention across to Pleasure Island, which is our vision board, and we're going to say, well, what are the benefits? Why do this? What are the benefits of diversity and inclusion? What are our aspirations? What does that aspirational destination look like? So by the fact that you've already started writing, I think I can interpret that to mean that you understand the instructions. And I'll pause. I will stop speaking for a minute. If anyone's got any questions. Sorry, I can hear someone. What are you saying there? Oh, I think that's someone in the background. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So we're just going to have a couple of moments of quiet. Keep on writing, and let's share our collective thoughts on Pain Island and Pleasure Island. Hi, Kanika, thanks for joining us. You've just joined us in a moment of quiet reflection.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just share some links in the chat for you. And we're currently in a mural board, which you can click through to. And we're just populating the top half of the change canvas with our collective thoughts on essentially why diversity and inclusion matters. So what are the challenges that leaders, organizations and individuals face? And then in a minute, we're going to be moving on to our vision. What does good look like? What are our aspirations? So come and join us, and please feel free to add your thoughts to the post-it notes that are in the change canvas. You'll be able to watch the recording afterwards to hear more about the intro that you've missed. Welcome and thanks for joining us. So that's incredible. In about 2 minutes, we've collectively filled the reflection board. It's a really useful exercise in showing you how, and this is some of the inclusive practices you can put in place in your organizations. When you're trying to get more voices heard, more opinions, more thoughts into a room, you can do a quiet writing exercise, and then you can have a conversation about it afterwards. So we can move across to the vision board now, and let's start sharing. Let's start thinking about Pleasure Island. What does it look like? What are our aspirations? Oh, got someone else joining. Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're just finishing up an exercise in Mural. I'm just going to share the link in the chat for you so that you can follow along. Thanks for joining us, Nadia. So that was amazing. That was 5 minutes, and between us, we have painted a much better picture than I think an introduction for me in terms of why diversity and inclusion matters. So this is the power of the collective voice. So we've talked about, so some of the things that you shared on Pain Island are the challenges around bias, around morale, around lack of productivity, not having enough time, staff retention, leaders not understanding there being talent gaps, poor organizational culture, there's a lack of belonging, potentially a lack of understanding, potentially a lack of acceptance, fear of disclosure. So there's a whole bunch of challenges, and those challenges are very, very real. Those challenges are preventing ultimately organizations and staff from thriving and fulfilling the greatest potential that they could. And if we move across to Pleasure Island, the benefits of diversity and inclusion are huge. They're about driving connection, building on our strengths, driving innovation, raising performance, retaining staff, which is both good in terms of relationships and training, but there's a bottom line cost associated with training up new staff and that constant attrition, the cost of attrition. It's about having all voices being heard, which drives ultimately better results. It's about, and then for the staff, it's about creating equity, building better relationships, better mental health, belonging, autonomy. So the benefits are, again, are huge. And there's, the business case for diversity and inclusion is strong. So I hope that was a useful exercise for you in both getting a sense of, what does the change canvas look like in practice? How can you use it? This is just one example, and I'm going to talk you through now a few other examples of how we use it in life, in business. In this particular example, we just focused in on the top half, and I thought about some questions, and within 5 minutes, our collective voice has been captured, and we've really got into, we could have a big conversation about this, but that's not the purposes of today's session. It's more talking about the change canvas, but in your world, that's the sort of thing that you could be doing. I also hope that the idea of this kind of quiet writing time is something that you'll be able to take away with you, as something that you can think, oh, when I'm running meetings in my world, when might it be useful to actually hear from everyone? When might it be useful to have a moment of reflection before we just listen to the loudest voices? So let me start sharing my screen again. And now that we've sort of set our foundations in terms of why diversity and inclusion is so important, let's talk about how some of our client organizations are using the change canvas. So let me share my screen again. So can I get a thumbs up if you can see that? I can only see some face. Yeah, there we go. Brilliant. Thanks, Maria. Right. So when it comes to thriving at work, human beings need some kind of core things. There's what's going on in our head, and there's what's going on in our hearts. So in our heads, we need clarity of direction. We need that enablement, that power to succeed. We need opportunities for growth, and we need to have this aligned meaning and purpose. In our hearts, fundamental to how we behave and how we feel is a feeling of safety, a feeling of freedom, being recognized for what we've done. So feeling valued, feeling that sense of acknowledgement for our contributions, and having positive relationships. So thriving teams accelerate progress. And everything about the philosophy of using the change canvas is about thinking of people, as humans with hearts and heads and feelings and emotions, who talk about not just their goals and their targets, but they talk about how they're going to do the work, as well as what the actual work is. So I'd like to come back to the change canvas and translate this sort of head and heart concept onto the different boards of the change canvas. So there are essentially 5 key elements that you'll see in high performing teams, and they're reflected here on the change canvas. So the reflection board is all about this sense of purpose and belonging, and it's about the team having a deep understanding of their purpose, the problems that they're trying to solve, and you've got the right culture is in place to seek feedback, not just to seek that feedback, to respond to that feedback, and ultimately to enable everyone to thrive. Your vision board is about vision and focus. It's about having that clarity of direction. Everyone knows where you're heading, everyone knows what your aspirations are, but having clearly defined short-term goals that can get you towards that bigger, greater collective strategic vision. The ideas board is all about diverse ideas, and the philosophy of the change canvas has diversity and inclusion embedded into the way that you operate, in the sense that you're welcoming diverse ideas. New ideas are continually generated, assessed, prioritized, and all voices are heard. You're creating a space, an environment where it's not about just agreeing with each other. It's about sharing and feeling safe to challenge, to confront, to share a dissenting view, to share something that's different. The action board is all about empowerment and proactivity. So it's about people knowing, what do I need to do? How does my work connect to the work of the bigger team? Everyone's empowered to deliver against those strategic objectives, both effectively and also efficiently. And then the results board is about agility and celebration. And I mentioned before, too often we're just moving on with the next thing, but that pause to course correct, understand what decisions have been made, transparency on those decisions, clarity and reflection on your lessons learned, and patting people on the back, saying thank you, celebrating your successes, and then you iterate and you go around again, continuing that cycle. So the change canvas is about getting results by focusing on people. It's about caring how they feel, who they are, what motivates them. It's not just thinking about people as resources to get the work done. It's about humans who care, who are unique, who have something amazing to contribute. And the change canvas is essentially your weapon, if you like, to challenge the status quo. So strategic planning doesn't have to be complicated. And a lot of people who are working in diversity and inclusion haven't come from a strategic planning background. So the change canvas is a way, and it's, I've worked in, I've had 2 decades of working in large multi-million-pound global transformation programs. And it's capturing what the change canvas essentially captures what's important. And I've personally used it to manage, multi-million-pound programs, but I've also then supported lots of different organizations to use it for, really simple programs to really complicated programs. It's about capturing the key things that matter and creating alignment around those things. And these building blocks shown on this slide tell you what those things are. So in the reflection board, it's what is our purpose? Why do we do what we do? Answer that question and make sure everyone really knows what it is. It's thinking about who you are and what you value. Having clarity on your shared values will drive your organization forward, because they become a shortcut for making the right decisions. When you know what your values are, and everyone is aligned on that, it helps you know what your next best steps are. And it's also, the reflection board is about understanding your challenges and your opportunities. So really understanding that problem space. What are the problems we're trying to solve, and what are the specific challenges or opportunities that are driving our change? The vision board is about your vision, your mission, and your goals. So clarity of your vision is your long-term aspirational destination. Your mission is, well, how are you going to achieve your vision? What is it that your organization is going to do to achieve that? And your goals then are specific time-bound objectives. So that could be what you're going to do in the next year. You could then have, a lot of organizations now are using what are called OKRs, which are objectives and key results, where you have, for example, quarterly objectives that you're working towards. Your ideas board is for brainstorming all of those future initiatives, all of the things that you could do. But the action board is about removing that noise of the possible and really focusing in on your current activities. So you've got a really clear list of what you're working on. Your results board is about sharing your achievements, noting your decisions, and capturing your lessons learned. So these key building blocks are what unites your team and creates that single source of truth. And the reason organizations have been using the change canvas, typically it's to get these kinds of benefits. So we've seen increased productivity, more strategic execution, because your strategy is connected to your action, your execution, because it's there on the same page. There's improved focus. You're not so much chasing after the shiny objects as the next thing comes. You're managing your priorities in a systematic, strategic way. There's more transparency. The team's more connected, more collaborative, more aligned. There's a more inclusive culture, because you're talking, that reflection board is inviting you to open up conversations and talk about how you're feeling. That ideas board is welcoming ideas from everyone. And there's greater agility. It creates this operating rhythm where you've got these different horizons, your long-term horizon, your medium-term horizon, and your action board, which is your short-term, exactly what you're doing now, which ultimately drives innovation. So in the links that I shared, you will have access to the Change Canvas Inclusion Toolkit, which is free. And I invite and welcome you to get access to it and download it. And within the Change Canvas Inclusion Toolkit are a number of Change Canvas guides. So as you've seen, the Change Canvas is essentially 5 boards on a page, and each of the guides will take that kind of core framework and fill in each of the boards with some specific questions or some specific kind of focal areas. And what I'm going to do today is share a couple of these guides that you can access in the context of a couple of case studies. So before I move on to the case studies, does anyone have any questions that they want to ask before I share some specific case studies? Are we good to continue? Okay, I will take your silence to mean we're good to continue. Tell me about the case studies, Marissa. I will interpret that. So let's continue. So case study number 1 is working with an organization to look at essentially creating their diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. So the organization that we were working with is YouView. You may well have heard of them. TV company, essentially. And you can see here what I asked for some thoughts to share for this session in advance. So Sanika, who's the HR manager, said that use of the change canvas has been insightful for UView. Together with the prompts in each section, it allowed us the space and time to reflect and think about what DE&I really means to us as a business, and think about some of the challenges in a safe space. It was particularly helpful for us to identify our vision and gave us accountability for change as we move to establish our strategy for the coming years. Caroline shared that she thought that it'd been really helpful to pull together the different perspectives of our wide range of employee groups in the company and identify our most impactful opportunities for change. She thought that the approach was methodical, respectful, and insightful. And then she was pleased with the pace, which is more around how we supported them through the consultancy that we were doing. So what I wanted to share with you is, well, what do we actually do? What did it look like to help you think about, well, how could I do this? What could I do? So what we did was we broke it down into 3 phases. So we started with a discovery phase. We then had a definition phase, and then there's a delivery phase, which will come. So the discovery phase is about creating this shared understanding on the diversity and inclusion challenges, the successes, the opportunities, the aspirations for the future. And I'll tell you more about how we broke that down and used the change canvas to do that. The definition phase was then around actually looking in that vision board and saying, okay, what does this mean in terms of our strategy? What does that future that future vision look like? What are the emerging strategic themes? What are the priorities that are coming through here? What are the targets and metrics we want to set ourselves? And the delivery then is about putting in place that operating rhythm to break off manageable chunks and start to set quarterly goals so you can deliver upon those in a repeating cycle. So for those discovery workshops, and this is something that you too can do, we chose to break it down into 2 sessions. So we had 3 different groups. So we worked with the executives, we worked with the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and we worked with managers and other interested parties across the organization. And with each of those groups, we ran 2 sessions. The first session was a reflection session. So we started in the results board, which is always a great place to start if you're running a change canvas workshop, because you celebrate success. You know, you start with the good, and so often there's so much good in an organization that it's nice to create a platform for what are we already doing well. We then moved to the reflection board and we started exploring some of the challenges, you know, why the context for change, why change. In the second workshop, it was more future focused. So we were starting then to look at the vision and what the aspirations for the future might be, and what ideas or initiatives could help make that a reality. And this you'll find in the inclusion toolkit is the framework that we use. There's also a more detailed version that we created or that we use with our clients that's not available in the toolkit, but would be available if you work with us. But this is freely available. I encourage you to use it, and it works really well. So you start in the results board looking at what you've already achieved. You move to the reflection board to look at why does diversity and inclusion matter for us. And I can't emphasize how important that is, because connecting it to you and your organization and your mission and your purpose is really important. It's not just a recruitment or a culture piece. It's connected to everything. So connecting it into everything that you do is how you will make it sustainable, how you will make it successful, how you will make it meaningful. You then explore why change. You know, why don't we just do what we've always done? What are the drivers? What are the challenges we're facing? And what are some of the other things you should consider when creating your strategy? We then move across to the vision board to start thinking about what success looks like for us. So that guiding vision, starting to see the emerging strategic themes, the focus and the priorities, and starting to think about the metrics that are going to be important for your organization. Once you've looked at that higher level vision, you can start brainstorming specific initiatives or ideas, you know, such as, I don't know, looking at the language on your job adverts, for example, might be a specific thing you could do that would meet some of your bigger objectives. And then you say, well, what are we going to do next? We can't do everything now, but let's break it down into our first iteration, our first cycle, and commit to what we're going to do. So ultimately, it's about getting into this rhythm, this operating cycle of discovering, deciding, and delivering. And it's about bringing your teams within your organization together to do that. And for each of you, you'll need to think about, well, who needs to be involved, and getting the right stakeholders involved is really important, and giving them the right level of, you don't want to take up too much of people's times, but you want them to be involved and contributing. So thinking that through is really key. So the discover phase is about opening up conversations, inviting feedback, understanding as many different perspectives as possible, creating different ways for gathering that feedback. So it's not, there might be some things that people don't feel comfortable sharing. Think about how you can create mechanisms for people to share things that might bring some level of discomfort. Deciding is then about making some commitments, summarizing the headlines, creating that single source of truth, providing that transparency, and creating a change canvas that people can reference and say, right, here it is, this is what we're doing, this is what it looks like. And then delivering is then when you get into that cycle of delivering, you're actually making progress, you're running an event, you're putting in place a training program, you're changing your policies, whatever your actions or whatever your initiatives are. And it's about keeping everyone aligned as you go. And then once you get into that cycle, I'm not going to talk you through this in detail, but you start to create these nice cycles for check-ins. So your kickoff, your focal point, the star there is about your vision board, and it's around getting clarity in terms of where you're heading. Once you get into your delivery cycles, you've got your check-ins, you're checking in on your action board, and you're regularly coming back to your action board to see who's done what, how would, this was meant to happen by Tuesday, has it really happened? Having those sort of very detailed and execution focused conversations. And then your mission reviews, which might happen on a quarterly basis, is about focusing in on your results board and capturing your successes, sharing those successes, thinking about who you might need to communicate with and who you might need to share with. Okay, so that's the first case study, which is about ultimately creating your diversity and inclusion strategy. Before I go on to share the second case study, thank you for the thumbs up. I can only see a few faces, but thank you. Before I go on to share the second case study, does anyone have any questions that you would like to ask? Thank you for the thumbs up, appreciated. See if I can see more faces. Okay, so I will, in the interest of time, go on to talk about the second case study, and we can have a discussion. If there are any questions at the end, we can continue. So the second case study is looking not so much at an organizational wide diversity and inclusion strategy, but looking more at a grassroots employee network for diversity and inclusion. So this, the organization here is Swift, and Swift, I suspect many of you will know, they're the kind of global payments provider. With the situation in Russia and Ukraine, I think they became well known by everyone because there was a lot of talk around what they were going to do in terms of international payments. And Diversily has done an enormous amount of work with Swift. They've been a really great partner of ours. And again, before this session, I asked Erin for some thoughts in terms of, we've done a whole host of work with them. We've rolled out our leadership training to their managers. But this, I asked her specifically, tell me about the how the change canvas has helped the at Swift, it's called the Balance Network, how the change canvas has helped the Balance Network. And this is what she said, what she shared. So she said, the change canvas is such a valuable tool to drive ownership of DE&I initiatives. It really helped us to set our goals and then work out concrete steps towards achieving them. Crucially, it meant that we were able to celebrate what we've already achieved. As DEI practitioners, the ask and the expectation on our function are ever growing. Taking stock, celebrating success, and prioritizing future action is critical to having the energy to drive this work forwards. So that's what Erin shared about their experience. And this template or guide you'll find in the free inclusion toolkit, which is the link that I shared in the chat earlier. In fact, I think I will share those links again, because I think we've had some people join since I shared them. So that's so that everyone can access them. So this is the template that we used. And it was really around creating, so the network is, it's global, there's people in all different regions within the organization who are essentially volunteering to be a part of this global network, and they're wanting to encourage people across the organization to take initiatives, but they want to create some alignment to make sure that everyone is connected and knows what other people are doing. So what they've done is they've used the change canvas as a sort of a single summary that they share on a periodic basis, and they use it when they have sessions with the different regional networks. So it just creates a really simple summary on a page to help them remind themselves on what they're for, why do we exist. And for organizations who are starting up an employee network, it can really help in those initial in that kind of initial setup phase to really think about what your role is, because there can be lots of people with different views on, what is the role of our employee network. Are we here to provide support for each other? Are we here to provide a voice? Are we driving strategic change? Are we changing culture? What's our actual role? So having those conversations and really understanding your remit as a network is going to be really important. So summarizing why you exist, getting clarity on the key challenges that you're facing and what you're trying to address. Your vision board, you then articulate what your vision is for, what are you aiming for, what are you trying to create, and then what are your specific goals. So get specific about what you're trying to achieve. And then in the progress board, this is updated more regularly, where they'll brainstorm specific initiatives, they'll commit to say what initiatives are we going to be taking forward this month or this quarter. And then the results board, they'll share, well, these are some of the great things that we've achieved this month. And then they'll create a new change canvas and share it, potentially part of a presentation where they're sharing lots of details of other things that have been achieved, or just as a single, kind of summary in terms of this is where we're at. So it's really simple, but ultimately it works, and it gives this sort of central source for everyone to get behind and have that visibility and that clarity. So I'll share a couple of other examples, and then I'm happy to take questions. So this was an example. I know within D, E, and I groups, we're often putting on events. So this is an example. This was an event. This was back in 2019, actually, when real life events were a thing. We did them all the time. Luckily, we're getting back to that space. And this was a collaborative event. There was a law firm, the NHS, and the Bristol One City initiative, which involves a whole bunch of lots of different organisations, put on this event about everyday inclusion. And it was a really great event that had a range of speakers who were talking about their lived experiences, and also a range of experts who were talking about their area of expertise around inclusion. And what we did during that event is, as the speakers were talking, we scribed the key points into the change canvas, and we mapped either it was an action that someone could take, or it was a result that had been seen, or if it was an aspiration in terms of what we're aiming for. And we were scribing as we went, live scribing during the event, mapping into the boards of the change canvas, and we were getting these perspectives from the lived experience speakers as well as the experts. And at the end, we created this summary of the event, and it was just a really nice way of capturing so many different insights that came from this array of speakers into something, a single page that could be shared, that actually you can take a screenshot of if you'd like. It's filled with so many pertinent points, if you like. So it's a nice way of creating a long-lasting memory of an event. The other example that I wanted to share is more in the context of building an inclusive team culture. Again, this is available in the inclusion toolkit. And this is about opening up conversations with your team. So if you're leading a team, whether it's a project team or a permanent team, whatever it may be, it's about having a conversation with them and saying, well, what could we do to make our team more inclusive? Let's start in the results board and share some ideas. What already makes our team inclusive? Then let's go to have some tougher conversations in the reflection board. What might make people feel excluded? And quite often people haven't had these conversations in the team. So using this as a framework to facilitate those conversations it just gives you a little bit of structure and a little bit of guidance. And by having people sharing anonymous post-it notes, it can create that space for open and important dialogue. You can then move to the vision board to say, what does being an inclusive team mean to us? So set your foundation, your team contract, if you like, around what it means to you. You can then brainstorm some ideas of things you could do to become more inclusive. And then you can also invite everyone to do something. What action can everyone take? And quite often change is about individual personal action. So it's making everyone in the team feel accountable and responsible, that there's something that they can do. So that's just another example of a framework, a guide, a change canvas guide that you can use. So I hope that today's session has given you some insights, both on what the change canvas is, but some really specific examples of how other organizations are getting value, getting success from it. So before we finish today's session, I'll open the floor for any questions if anyone has any. I said at the beginning of the session that I wanted to share some special offers with you, so I'll share those with you, and then I'll open the floor for questions. So in terms of special offers, so in terms of implementing the change canvas, as I said before, it is a free tool, and we welcome, invite, encourage people to use it and take advantage of it. So the first pillar here is take the DIY approach. Sign up, download the change canvas. Hopefully the content in this session has given you enough context to say, do you know what? I think I know exactly what I need to do. I can get started. I can start using it. In which case, do that, and share your feedback, preserve the Diversily branding, but share your stories, and make the change that you want to see a reality. Would be absolutely delighted. The second pillar is the guide, and this is the change canvas handbook, which contains over 60 pages of implementation support. So it's really a detailed explanation of all of the insights that we've been giving to people on a sort of one-to-one consultancy basis, captured in a guide, so that you can take advantage of it without paying for kind of one-to-one consulting support. The guide comes with a free coaching call, and the special offer for anyone who's either listening to this on the recording or is here today is that we'll be offering unlimited email support for a month, essentially. So if you're serious about getting started and you want to put this operating rhythm, you want to put the change canvas in place, we're here to help you be successful. We'll answer emails, and we will get you to the point of making it happen, and we'll share our insights with you. The next two options are more around coaching and tailored support. And I'm pretty sure that Swift and you wouldn't have had the success that they've had, without that tailored support. We've also had other people who've used the change canvas without any involvement for us, who've had really positive experiences with it. So it's about you thinking about what's going to be best for your organization. Coaching is about you're doing it, you're in the driving seat, but we're on tap. We're at either on our phone or via email. We're here to guide you and help you think about how it relates to your organization. What are some of the things you should be thinking about? What are some of the things that you should be doing, but you're driving it and you're doing it? And the tailored support is, well, anything goes really. It's around, maybe you want some training, some tailor-made consultancy, some strategy definition. Maybe you want us to facilitate workshops when you're bringing together, groups of people. That's our expertise. That's what we do. That's what we love doing. Or maybe you want some support with the execution or the delivery. So we can, it's about talking to us about your needs. Now, in terms of the special offer, if you go with either coaching or tailored support, we will give you, if you mention this event, we'll give you access to the guide for free. So it will it's all yours. You can enjoy the access to the guide for free. So that's how we can support you, and that's how you can get started. The final thing that I wanted to mention before I open for any questions is our inclusive leadership program. So I mentioned at the beginning of this session that that's our sort of flagship program, if you like, that we offer. We work with organizations to deliver inclusive leadership training, and we'll be looking to put on an open program in the final quarter of this year. We're currently in the process of defining exactly what that's going to contain and exactly when, what the dates are going to be. But what we're offering is, if you express an interest, so if you sign up and express an interest, and you mention the early bird 2022 code, at the point that we release the details of the program, you will be eligible for an offer. So there's no commitment at all. All you're saying is, oh, our organization might be interested in inclusive leadership training, and if we go ahead, we'd like to register for the early bird discount. So the program is, our approach to inclusive leadership is all around building inclusive thinkers who can embed inclusive intelligence into the way that they lead their teams. It's about helping them understand privilege, understand perspective, helping them think about creating psychological safety for their teams, building healthy, high performance into their teams. It's really focused on action and giving people tangible things and ideas that they can put into practice. It's not about making them feel bad because they're biased and then leaving them and sort of wondering what to do next, which is some of the criticism that unconscious bias training has received historically. It's really practical, action orientated training that, you know, you can see one of a feedback here from one of our participants from last year's open program. She said, I can honestly say that the Diversily Inclusive Leadership Program has been life-changing. I'm walking away with new knowledge, skills, tools, and most importantly, the courage and confidence to embed inclusivity into my everyday working life. If you really want to drive change, participate in this training. You and your team won't be disappointed. So we've received so much fantastic feedback, and it's just a joy and an honor to help people change the way that they think and the way that they lead their team. So if that's of interest to you, then, as I say, just register your interest on the Inclusive Leadership Program, and we will be sharing details in due course. So that is all that I wanted to share. Oh, thank you for the clap, Holly. Very nice. That's all that I wanted to share in terms of the presentation today. I hope that you've got an understanding of what the Change Canvas is. You've been inspired in terms of the 2 case studies. I hope you'll take advantage of the special offers. And if people are interested in kind of anything in a kind of group format where multiple organizations are involved, we're open to ideas. So if you've got thoughts, we're here to collaborate. We're here to kind of inspire change in the industry. So all ideas are always welcome. So with that in mind, I will stop speaking and I will ask if anyone's got any comments or questions, and I will happily answer them.
No, thanks for sharing your sort of framework, Marissa. I think that's really, it's great. I've seen business model canvas before, so this is a sort of a different model and use mural, but yeah, it's a really nice way of mapping things out sort of visually and, having that sort of visual alignment. So I'd like to sort of take it away, your sort of toolkit, and see how we can apply it and
brilliant
and come back. But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, the business model canvas I'm very familiar with, and the value proposition canvas, which I love as well.
Yeah.
And I think there's a real power in it. The change canvas is about, it's a different take in the sense that you're looking at change. You're looking at what's needed to drive change. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
One of the links I shared, actually, when I shared my sort of selection of links, is my LinkedIn profile. So please just connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's talk. I'm very open to having further conversations, etc., etc. So thank you for that, Maria.
Yeah,
any other comments from anyone else, or questions or thoughts?
Hi there, Marissa. Haven't seen you in a while.
Hey,
this is Jaron. Hiya. So just kind of like a back to basics question. So I've actually shared Diversily and the Change Canvas with the organization I work at, and we are currently dealing with the recruitment function on behalf of other organizations. So Diversily, DE&I agenda is very large on our bit of strategy, actually. The question I had is, how do we bring the diversity agenda to a bit more prominence within the organization? Obviously, we try and recruit for diverse candidates in that case, but I think that internally it could use a bit more of a spotlight, actually. So how do we actually start this conversation? How do we bring it to the staff and management's attention and make it a priority within the organization as well?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, and I think this is something that many people who are sort of passionate for the topic are finding in their organizations. There's selling the business case, and even once sometimes you've sold the business case, you might even have approval to do something, you're still constantly having to sell the value and convince people that this is the right thing to be doing. So there is a bit of I guess kind of, as with any kind of change program, there's canvassing to be done, and it's about understanding your stakeholders, understanding what their objections might be, and also what their gains might be. So typically you move people through either hope or fear. Those are your kind of levers for change. And the hope story in the context of diversity and inclusion is all about creating more opportunity for everyone, creating equity, better well-being, driving innovation, increasing performance. And you can even go and have a look, in fact, at some of the things that we've collectively shared on the change canvas in the mural today for, what are some of the things that are going to be pertinent for people within your organization. The fear conversation is about getting left behind, losing out to the competition. Staff are going to start leaving because people are looking for organizations who are diverse and inclusive. So it's about understanding, those levers, if you like, the hope lever and the fear lever. And it's also about meeting people where they are. So typically people change through either stories, so personal stories are really powerful, and data. So data and research is another really powerful lever for change. And then it's about finding advocates and supporters within the organization and identifying the key people who you need to get on side. And sometimes it can be that you need training, so inclusive leadership training. If organizations that have implemented our programs find pushing forward these things much easier because there's this foundational understanding of what diversity and inclusion is, why it's important, how to think inclusively, how to lead your teams in this way. But or you can run change canvas workshops where you say, we're just going to be focusing in on this particular topic. And that's just a way of opening up the conversations and starting to raise awareness and then starting to connect it to your organization. So I'm conscious of time, so I hope that answered your question, and thank you for sharing our work with your organization. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Marissa.
Okay, well, I think we've probably got time for one other question if there are any, but otherwise in the interest of time, we should probably close the session. Any burning questions from anyone else? No, okay, in which case I will end it there. I thank you all thank you for the claps, very much appreciated. Thanks for the claps and the thumbs ups. I hope this has been useful. For those of you listening in on the recording, I'll share the links in a follow-up email so that you've got access to the special offers. And let's stay in touch, let's collaborate, and then let's make the change we all want to see a reality. So thank you all for joining.
Thanks, Marissa. Bye.
Brilliant. Cheers, everyone.